Me a moment with your friend. Evidently not trying out for my thoughts before.
Welcome to the Only One Mic podcast called Gerard Brooklyn Dre. Just me is here. J Rob is off tonight. How y'all doing?
What up?
Feeling good.
All right, we have a very, very, very special guest with us today, Miss CaTyra Polland, and she's going to talk to us about Black Authors Month. But before we go into that, I want to ask you how you doing today, CaTyra?
I'm doing pretty well. No complaints.
All right, that's what's up. Thank you for being a part of the show. I know, we record late, so but I thank you for being a part of it. All right.
You're welcome.
Very good choice of that Brooklyn blue too. That Brooklyn Logic blue. Very good choice.
It's a New York blue.
Actually, purple.
Purple, is it?
Oh, is it? It look
Yeah,
blue.
off the reflection, it look purple. But
I'll take it.
you'll take it. All right. But you are a Rochester, New York native?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Straight New Yorkers on this podcast today. Straight New Yorkers.
Yes.
We don't count upstate though. That's how.
Yo,
wow. Okay.
Wow.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. They bang out up there.
We just joking.
That's the real zoo. Rochester. That's the real zoo. Yeah.
It's
You need to know.
close vicinity of each other, so that's how it works. Yeah. Like
What?
It's small. Brooklyn's the biggest borough in New York City.
Nobody wants to talk about Brooklyn every time we get on here.
We just gotta stake the claim. Gotta put the flag.
let you know where we at.
Y'all
Let you know
been
where
in
we
Delaware
at.
ever since y'all was 10 years old.
Stop that line.
Give it a rap.
That line. But
Stop
you-
Give it a rap.
Well,
bro.
listen, we ain't here to talk about that. We here to talk to CaTyra about Black Authors Month. You know what I mean? And
Right.
let me just give you an early applause for that one. Now, you have many, many, many accomplishments. And, I can run down just a few of them. You earned your Master's of Arts in Criminal Justice from the State University at Albany at the age of 23.
Right.
Which, if you look at CaTyra, that was probably just like 2 days ago.
Right.
All right.
Right.
All right. You got your Bachelor's of Art in Sociology and Spanish from the State University of New York at Buffalo, and graduating cum laude with honors in Spanish and high honors in sociology. During your undergraduate career, you studied in Puerto Rico for a semester.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Of course, I was immersed in the language. I originally wanted to be a Spanish teacher.
Okay.
So that's why I did the joint major, but then I changed my mind. But Puerto Rico was one of the best experiences I've had.
Best vacation spot I've ever been at, man.
Oh, yeah.
Really? It's so crazy because I've always wanted to go to Puerto Rico, and it's really not hard for us to get there because that's part of, our country.
Right.
I don't know why. It just seemed like when it comes to bills and taking a trip, I'm more like, I gotta pay this bill. I'm about to be like everybody else, like if the lights get cut off, I'm going to have to.
When you was there, it's like every day felt like it was a vacation. I'm quite sure. You did work while you was there, but you just to be outside of the norm and seeing all that beautiful water and stuff every day, I'm quite sure was a lot.
It's crazy how I'm listening to your background, and although I have not accomplished as much as you, we do have some similarities. Like you're a Black author, I'm a published author, and then the fact that I wanted to learn Spanish, but I got so frustrated conjugating my verbs.
That is challenging.
I'm in criminal justice, that's my major. I'll be done next year. So we do have a lot of similarities, although you've accomplished a lot more. And I'd just like to commend you for your accomplishments at this time.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let you on some inside baseball. I didn't even read all of it. Like she has a lot more. So I gotta big you up, because if I sat there and just read your accomplishments, then that would be the vast majority of the show. Yeah. But I want you to have the opportunity to discuss the Black Authors Month, as well as Love4Words, which is your
editing business. Yeah.
Yes. So give us a little bit of background on your Love4Words company and what type of service it offers to up and coming writers, if you can, please.
For sure. So I launched Love4Words in 2017. I have a friend who's a publisher, and she was looking for an editor, to join her team. So I did a sample edit, and she loved it. And she started referring me to her publishing clients. So, you know, I was getting a steady stream of clients and income. So I decided to just go ahead and launch my business. And that was my second business. So I had, you know, I was already an entrepreneur. So I went ahead and started, you know, working with authors. And I really work with Black authors specifically to help them on the journey, because I'm sure, as Just Me knows, it can be difficult to be a self-published author. There is a lot that comes with that. So I want to be a part of closing the gap between Black editors and Black authors, because I've worked with, you know, authors who were scarred by working with white editors who didn't understand the culture, who don't care about the culture, don't care about the language and what goes on in our communities. So instead of that editor, you know, taking a look at the manuscript and giving it a fair edit, they're judging the author based on the content, or they're judging the author because they're using names like CaTyra instead of Catherine, or because they're using African-American vernacular or Ebonics instead of standard English. So I really take pride in being able to work with Black authors to make sure that their stories are authentic, and that, you know, I'm not going in there to make it sound like how I want it to sound. I'm there to guide them and make sure it's the best that it can be, and that their voice is maintained. Because, you know, there are a lot of, you know, authors who get nervous to work with editors because they think we're just going to go in there with our red pen and chop it up and change it. Right. But for me, I really take pride, and I'm honored to be able to, you know, make sure the story is ready to be published and that the author feels confident about what they're putting out there. Most of my clients are nonfiction, so they're talking about their lives. They're talking about, you know, traumas that they've been through, or they're sharing poetry or, you know, things that they have witnessed. So it's very personal to them. So it is important that, you know, I maintain their voice and encourage them, because it can be a difficult journey to, you know, publish a story that's so close and so personal to, you know, what you've been through.
You mentioned that going through the publishing process, it's really an ordeal. And I think that was the most stressful part of me putting my book together, because, you know, a publishing company is supposed to proofread and everything. They, you know, they help you find out the flow of your book. I put together my cover, my table of contents. Like, I put everything, I want this poem and this poem and this poem. So when the finished product came, it's poems that's not in there. It's misspelled words. It's, you know, poems that were supposed to go after a poem, but I tried to go, you know, support my own, you know, and it was a friend of mine's sister, and she was like, I got you for half price, and I got the half price job. It's like
she gave you the 2 for $5.
Yeah, like, you know, right. I wanted to ask you, so what are some of the things, or maybe if you could just name like 1 or 2 things that you should really look for when you're looking into publishing with a company, or should you just self-publish?
So, I mean, it depends on what your preference is. So if you're somebody that really likes independence, you don't want to, you know, wait for somebody else, you don't want to rely on somebody else, then you may want to self-publish and do it on your own. Of course, there's pros and cons with everything. So that could be more stressful, because you have to find the person to do your book cover. You have to do the formatting. You have to get the ISBN, the copyright, put it up on Amazon. All that falls on your shoulders. So you can self-publish, but again, it just depends on how you work best and what capacity you have. Do you have the time and energy to do it yourself? The other option is a hybrid publisher, which it sounds like maybe you worked with. But basically, they would take care of the, you know, getting it on Amazon. They will get the ISBN, the copyright,
that's what happened. Yes.
Formatting. They'll do all of that, but the author maintains all of the royalties.
When I published my book, you know, when you pull it up on Amazon, the publishing company comes up like they wrote the book with me.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not, they didn't write the book with me. I wrote the book. You know what I'm saying? But it's so many things that.
CaTyra, don't get yourself involved with her. Don't get yourself involved. Huh?
Especially no.
She went and got the hood version. You know, she's very professional, but she probably got the hood version on this one.
So anyway, this happens every show.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is every show. Okay, I've known this man for many years.
Yeah. That's why I'm telling you what deal she got.
So, no, you know, I mean, you know, like I'm appreciative, and it was a learning experience. So I've been learning to take blows in life, like, and that was kind of a blow. It wasn't a bad way because I still don't know about, well, that's a whole nother story. I'm talking about like royalties and stuff, you know, how to track that. I don't have, when you go through a hybrid, you know, you kind of got to rely on them, or at least I have to rely to see what's going on. What's my movement in Barnes and Nobles? What's my movement in Amazon? And to me, I want to be more hands-on. So this is great for any up and coming author and inspiring author. This is like good content because these are things that I wish I had talked to someone instead of just jumping in.
And you find more people who I guess don't know the business side of.
Right.
I think if anything you get involved in, you got to know the business side of it as opposed.
And
to
I'm a poet.
Yeah, because you have your talent. Poetry. Your talent is always going to be with you, hopefully. But you know, the business side of it is, how do I not have my talent jacked from me?
Right.
Is there a way to monitor yourself? Because I hear even in regards to actual merchandise with Amazon, like people are having problems with actually being able to monitor their sales and stuff like that. I mean, is there a way to do so?
Yeah. So the hybrid publishers that I work with and that I connect with my clients to, the accounts that they create are created with the author's credentials. So for you, Just Me, they should have created an account with your email and all of your information, not their own. So, you know, I mean, every publisher is different, but ideally, when you work with a hybrid publisher, that's what would happen. So that way, when there are alerts about your royalties and sales, it will automatically come to your email. So to go back to your original question, how can you make the journey easier? What should you do if you're embarking on this journey? I would recommend testimonials. So you go to the publisher and you say, hey, can I see some testimonials from past clients? They should have it on their website, maybe on their social media. You could also ask for samples. That's more so on the editing side, but ask to see the work that they've done and talk to the clients who work with them before you jump in. So that would be number one. And then, like Carl said, is, doing research and your due diligence so that you're not walking in completely unaware. So you have some idea. So when they mention certain terms, you'll know because you spent 20 minutes, looking at what the typical process is to self-publish. So I would say, number one is proof of their work. And number two is, taking responsibility and accountability to educate yourself, at least at the basic level before you dive in.
I want to backtrack on something. If I can kind of spin this back.
Mm-hmm.
Where did your love for words start?
I have always loved reading and writing. I remember going to the library with my mom, and I participated in the Pizza Hut Book It program where you get the free candy.
You went
way back. It's way back. Right
so I would do that every year. And when I was in elementary school, I read to my peers. So it really just started, I would say that young, when probably even before I started school, just having access to books at home, reading with my mom and, watching like Reading Rainbow and just, her buying me books like the Goosebumps series and Animorphs. And that really played a big part in my adolescence and childhood, like the Babysitter's Club, all that stuff. Now, I'm not 2 days past 23.
Yeah. Thought you about to go into that Billy Joe Jive collection.
Joe Jive and the Bloodhound Gang and Captain O.G. Reedmore.
That was my thing right there.
So with your publishing company, what was some of the challenges that you faced going into opening the company, because you have an actual company? So what did you face? Now you're not trying to publish a book. You're trying to open a company and you're in a market that doesn't really have a lot of Black females.
Yeah.
Black people, period, people of color, minorities, period. So you're touching into a market where we're scarce. So what were the challenges that you faced? How did you prove that you were worthy enough to do this?
I mean, early on, I didn't have like a mentor, so that was probably a challenge for me. So a lot of what I had to learn in the moment, like trial by fire.
Yeah.
So I had to, stumble. But I did take advantage of some of the other resources like books. Like I would check out books about editing. And, I would go on YouTube and, look at different videos about the different types of editing so I can decide, what my niche is. I did join the Professional Editors Network, so I was able to connect with other editors. And I took advantage of, social media. There are lots of online and virtual workshops that I participated in just to build up my knowledge. And, in the networking online, I was able to connect with other Black editors and hear about their stories and how they got started. So it was really a virtual launch for me. I didn't have a one-on-one mentor to go to ask questions about their journey. So it was really, self-motivated. I had to do that on my own. I had to have that, what's the word I'm looking for? I had to have that passion and that drive to get the knowledge that I needed. There's different, editing certificates. I did a certificate through Udemy on editing, and I'm actually in an editing certificate program right now. So always just staying up on the craft, because we all know things change so quickly in all industries. So it's really about just being open to learning and recognizing mistakes and moving past them. One of the things I will say that I'm very proud of is that I onboarded my first intern this year, and she's a Black woman. So I'm really excited to be a part of, continuing the legacy of Black editors, because we need them. The other part that made me really excited and proud is that she actually reached out to me. So she was following me on social media when she was in school, and then she emailed me and, asked about an internship. And I hadn't even promoted or shared that I was looking for an intern. It wasn't on my radar. But for her to email me and say, I've been following you for a few years and I appreciate this beautiful journey, and that there's a Black woman, she's also in Rochester. So it just gave me, it was a sign that I'm doing something right. Out of all the editors, somebody reached out to me and asked to be my intern.
That's
so,
awesome.
That says
congratulations.
Thank you.
Right.
And let me ask you a question. You're in Rochester right now?
Yes, I live in Rochester. Yeah.
Okay, because I saw you did some studies in Atlanta as well.
No, not Atlanta. But I used to live in Savannah, Georgia, though.
In Savannah,
I lived there for a few years. Yeah, okay. I lived there for a few years. I was actually down there on AmeriCorps. Are you guys familiar with AmeriCorps?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, it's like Peace Corps, but in the States.
Right.
So I was down there for a few years. So yes, I was in Savannah. I didn't study while I was there. I worked, but yeah.
And I want to commend you on your volunteerism as well. I see you're really big into community and volunteerism. That's awesome. Yes. I like to see our people doing work in the community.
To be self-motivated and wake up in the morning and do something like that is different, which I wish I could be better at.
And then especially you look at it now, who has time in the day to do, so when you find somebody that has so much going on, such as yourself, but still you find time to give to the community, you gotta give a special shout out for that,
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
In terms of the books that, because you yourself is you're a published author, and I think, if I can safely say this, you literally wrote the book on professionalism.
Yeah, right. That's crazy, right? That's crazy.
Yeah. Would you like to speak on that? Because I was sharing with them a couple of days ago about how, professionalism just went in the toilet. The postal worker is don't even, wear the uniform.
Always been crazy.
Not like that though. Not like that. I'm gonna share this with you, KaTyra. Let's go into it. So I'm walking my dog and I see this, postal worker outside.
Going off.
So a young man is on there. He has the uniform on, but he has the tights that you wear under the basketball shorts, and
Okay.
like fatigue, and he got these colorful socks on and a do-rag, and he's blasting music. And I'm like, where's the professionalism anymore? Maybe because I'm getting older. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want my neighborhood postman to come around like that. You know what I mean? Because you like blasting, obscenities around kids and older folks and stuff. And so you start to see that more in like a lot of the workplaces and, the service that you're receiving at most of these, stores and restaurants and things like that. And I said, well, since I'm going to have the person who wrote the book on it, you know what I mean? What are some tips coming from your book? What are some tips can you offer, some people in terms of professionalism?
Don't be high.
That's number one.
Let's start there. Work our way back.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah. So, I would say for professionalism, I think it's important to mirror. I would say it's important to mirror the environment that you're in. So, if your supervisor or, your colleagues are, coming in khakis and they're wearing their, dress shoes and things like that, you probably don't want to be the person coming in your jersey and your sneakers,
Right.
But it varies. So there are cultures where that's perfectly fine. But I think, again, it's important to take a look at, the culture and take a look at how other people are dressed so that you do fit in. And also, I think the more important part of that is considering how you would want to be treated. And
That's right. That's
so
right.
if you walk into a bank, do you want the bank teller smacking on their gum and they on this call?
Right.
Or would you have an issue with that? And I think that answers a lot of questions. And I think just sitting there and saying, okay, would this be acceptable to me? Would I want to walk in, to the jewelry store and see the jeweler in, I don't know, a velour suit? How would that make me feel? And of course, it's individuals. So some people don't mind that.
Justice thinking that's a deal right there.
I was working in the bank and I remember they were training us for customer service. And it was, before when you started working in the bank, you had 6 weeks of training. It wasn't 2 weeks and then you just on the floor. You had to know what you were doing before you got out there. And I remember being in training class and the trainer said, do not assume that someone is a male or a female on the phone. And if you're not sure how to pronounce the person's name, ask.
Right.
And don't call somebody ma'am. And now, every time I get phone calls, I'm being called ma'am. If not ma'am, I guess my voice is deep, so they say sir sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just offensive. Like, I end up blacking
That's
out.
not funny.
I'm not worried about
We're gonna clown after this show.
Listen
I'm
to
saying,
me,
you know that, CaTyra, this is what's
I'm not
going
worried
to
about
happen.
that.
It's going to happen.
At the end of the day,
Sir.
I end up spazzing out before I can even get what I need out of the call because I'm already frustrated. Wouldn't you agree, ma'am, Dre?
Wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
In this day and age, I'm telling you, most of these kids in here are like really high. Like, like sometimes you're like sitting there saying to them, like, and I don't want to take this conversation there, but that's what it is. I think now that they think because weed is legal,
right,
it's all right to be high at work, man. You know what I mean?
No, but you have to understand, a weed high is different from another type of high, like pill high and stuff like that.
We're not going to have this conversation.
Just because that's something.
We're going to stop it right there. All right, let's stop it right there.
No, I'm saying just because it's something y'all don't do doesn't mean somebody can't do their job effectively. It does not.
We are moving on from this conversation, all right? Let's jump into
This is what I deal with this every week. This is what I deal with.
Let's jump into the whole, Black Authors Month, because I find that, very, very fascinating. Now, when you talk about Black authors, we're celebrating across the board, authors from the past, the authors of the future. Tell us about Black Authors Month.
Yeah, so I decided to start National Black Authors Month, obviously because there wasn't one already registered, but Black people have contributed so much to this country. We literally built it, as a matter of fact. So I think it's very important that the words that we have written, that we have spoken, are honored. not just for 1 month, but we can start with a national month recognition. So I wanted to make sure that is something on the radar for the entire country, and that it's not just Black people celebrating Black authors, because of course we touch the entire globe. So it's really a passion of mine to make sure that our stories are told, and that we are not muffled, or that we are not, whitewashed or undervalued or devalued based on what we've been through, or based on how we've been treated, or are still treated, as a matter of fact. So the National Black Authors Day is a day to spotlight Black authors, to read their books, to become a Black author, to, you can host a book signing, a book launch, you can host a read along. There are no limitations to what you can do to celebrate Black authors. And I wanted to make sure we had a month designated for just that, to know that we contribute to fiction and nonfiction, and that, our words are here to stay, and acknowledge our ancestors who are authors. And as you said, Carl, our future authors and those who are currently in the author space. We know that we still struggle to have adequate access to different channels, different media, and different opportunities. So during that month, we want to highlight, how far we've come despite all of the barriers in the way, and acknowledge all that we overcome, and that we have overcome, and that we are continuing to overcome, and all that we will do in the future. So that month is all about us and, what we have to say, because what we have to say is important and it does matter. And we do have a right, to share our stories. So
I think it's pretty dope that you even said paying homage. Like, as a poet, that was very important to me, to acknowledge those that came before me and those that paved the way. But I recently watched a documentary where they were talking about, like, the last slave ship that was reported in Alabama. And part of that, I guess Zora Neale Hurston started writing about it during her time. And when Alice Walker came along, after Zora Neale Hurston had passed, like, Alice Walker, that was her way of paying homage. Like, she picked up the ball of what Zora Neale Hurston started, and she was able to, even find out more information and pass on information, and I think that that's important, when it comes to our culture, before it used to be passed down, like, your great great uncle did this, or your great great aunt did that, and we knew the importance of what our families did and different important people in our family. And I feel like that conversation and that communication is not there anymore. That quality time spent and those important conversations aren't there. So paying homage, to another Black author, being an author myself, that's something that I find important, even being a poet. Like I said, looking at poets that came before me, even in hip hop, like, to me, that's so important. Instead of coming out trying to, like, belittle those before you, like, like, it doesn't get you anywhere. You see people go so much further. Even comedians, when they studied off the heels of others, you see their careers go so much further than those who just come out like, I'm the best, and, I'm better than that person that was before me. So
how do you guys feel about these new authors that are coming out? Like, like the new young authors, like, do you think they're, like, comparable to the Langston Hugheses and stuff like that of the past? Or
that's the thing. They have to have the potential. Some have the potential to be. But you know what, but I feel like we're quick to compare, like, all the time, instead of acknowledging that person for their craft and for their, how well they are doing what they're doing. They're in their own lane.
I actually, I don't even think I don't know if you can say compare it, but I think once you see it, or once you see the talent, it's there, so I was just asking, wondering, because I read too, but, I'm reading. These days, I'm not just stuck on, like, Black authors. I got, like, a bunch of different eclectic things that I'm reading. So I'm asking you guys, you're in the poetry, you guys in the poetry field and stuff like that. Do y'all notice that, like, do y'all see, like, these new names popping up where you're like, oh, that's the guy right there, or she's the female that, I want to
I can't really speak to that, me myself personally, because I can tell you, even though I'm a poet, I'm kind of still stuck on my Sister Soldier type, books, and because that's something that I grew up on, like that's my era, and I need to step out of the lines. Like here and there, I have ran into new people, and I've been like, okay, that book was pretty decent. Like I like that right there, but the name might not grasp me. Like I know that to me, one of my favorite books is called Family, and it's a book written by J. California Cooper. And I've read a bunch of J. California Cooper books, another Black author who passed away, I think in the 70s, she passed away. But I know that I'm still stuck on finding my people from before. And I feel like that's what makes me better now. So I would say, like, as far as the young people coming out, I can acknowledge that they're there. But I feel like those that have the potential to become great and have a name for themselves, they're doing what I'm doing. They're going back a couple eras and finding the roots of how this all started to make them better.
Let me ask you if I can, because you have a lot of people that come across your desk with different stories and poems and things of that nature. Have you ever read one and said, this is going to, probably change some lives, or this is going to change the game a little bit, or, what do you think? What is your opinion on that statement?
I mean, as I shared, I primarily work, in nonfiction. Right. I've done some, I have edited some poetry, but for me, the strongest stories are the ones where people are not afraid to talk about their trauma. So I have a client who wrote about her infertility issues or journey. And she's talking about the multiple times that she's had miscarriages and failed, I think, is it IVF?
IVF, yeah.
Okay. She's, had failed IVF procedures. So when I see the vulnerability on those pages, that's when I'm like, you're going to resonate with your target market. And I think those are the most important stories because we all have trauma. But if you're willing to put it in a book and open and let other people literally open up your trauma and read about it, I think that deserves to be applauded. So for me, I would say it's more so about that authenticity and that honesty coming through. I have another client who she wrote a book about how to have a successful marriage. So we know so many women, particularly Black women, are prayerful about getting their husband. They want their husband to come to them. But she talks about, are you ready for that? You sitting here praying for a husband. Are you a wife yet? What are you going to do for him? Like, what's your role in that? So I'm not married. I aspire to be, and I will be, but I was able to, take some lessons from that. So I think that's another part of it too, is that if you can resonate with people who aren't in your target market, when you're writing your book about yourself, right, that's another clear indicator that you're on the right path. Right. So, I mean, those are just two examples. I'm looking at some of the books I've edited, so that's what I'm looking at.
and do you guys find that like these companies, these publishing companies, are like stepping over, like those books that you're talking about? Because obviously, when you go to Barnes and Nobles, and there's a whole host of books about drug dealers and whatever, and then you got your classic section, classic section with the Langston Hughes and James Baldwin's and everything like that. And you might see a few new authors slipping with something that's different, but you don't see.
Ironically, we're all pushed in the same section. Yeah, it's like the African American.
The African American literacy section is all pretty much.
We're all pushed in together.
And I'm gonna just throw it out there. Either you
80% of it is
either
drug dealing and crime,
crime or sex.
Sex, a lot of sex, love novels, and
yeah. So unfortunately, the publishing industry is still very much white. So over 70% of publishers are white. And when I say publishers, I'm talking about traditional publishers, your Penguin Random, your, some of the others. So obviously they have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. So if what's the name? The young lady who wrote her book is Speak Life. That's the one about the infertility issues. She's a Black woman. She's talking about her, journey through infertility. If that comes across the, Penguin Desk or whatever big name, what's the likelihood they're going to be like, oh yeah, let's pick this one up? Not to say that they won't, but it's less likely.
Right.
It's featuring a Black author. She's talking about infertility. We don't think this is going to sell. We're going to pass on it. So that's one of the negative elements that can come if you decide to be traditionally published versus hybrid. You have a company who's making decisions about whether or not they can make money back on your book, or they decide whether or not there is a target market for your book. So for Black authors, it's harder to break into the traditional published route. Not impossible, but it makes it more difficult. So as we know, when the people in power don't look like you and they don't live like you and they don't appreciate your story or your struggle, they're more likely to pass you by. They're more likely to, not value what you have to say. So
the hybrid writer is like the mixtape game, where it's like, if I get out there and I scramble and hustle, I might be able to, make a publishing deal somewhere down the line or get a good deal.
Is it safe to say that someone who goes the hybrid route is less likely to become a bestseller, like a New York Times bestseller?
Not necessarily. Well, New York Times. Okay, I thought you meant New York Times bestseller. I would say it makes it more challenging because typically the path to New York bestseller comes with a big budget. You have the money to print, you
need the machine behind
books ahead of time. You're going to have the money to do a book tour and be on Oprah or be XYZ. So it makes it more difficult. Of course, it's not impossible, but yes, it's a more challenging accomplishment if you're going to self-publish or a hybrid route. But I would say one of the perks of the, self-publishing route is you have control of how you market your book versus that traditional publisher who will do it for you. So you can have a successful book tour as a self-published author working with a hybrid publisher. I've done a book tour. It can be virtual. It can be a mixture. I sold out of my book when I did my book launch. So there are opportunities for success for self-published authors. It doesn't necessarily, it might not look like, the traditional route, but in life, there's always a way to be successful. So, just because it's not the same doesn't mean it's not as important, it's not as valuable, or it's not worth pursuing. It just looks different.
Right.
A lot of the urban novels that we had, a lot of them were like self-published, like the old ones, and then they ended up, being bought out by publishing companies, and they made like huge deals later on in life. But and the books were like look at like Donald Goines, man, like them books are still selling like hotcakes.
Iceberg Slim.
Yeah,
all of that. All of that. Yeah.
Right. That's another point. You might start off self-published, but like you said, somebody come across that and you can still, move on to the traditional route if that's your preference.
Right.
So, and then the other, so one thing that is easier to achieve self-published is like number one on the Amazon bestseller list.
Right.
Quite a few of my clients have achieved that. And that's, I guess you could say that's kind of equivalent to the New York Times as a self-published author, to be able to say that you're top 5 or you are number 1. So again, just because it doesn't look like the traditional route doesn't make it less special or less honorable.
Yeah. As long as the money's green, I don't care how it comes.
And, also with the new lane of, equity, big thing that's going on now. And you see a lot of Black authors, publishing books on race relations and, how, white people can relate to us, which when we talk to, I believe it was Kelly Garrett, and she's like the author of the Detective by Day series and, Like a Sister and all that. She said something in the interview that was very interesting. She said that basically you're teaching us, we're traumatizing, we have to re-traumatize ourselves to teach you not to traumatize us.
Right.
And I've seen like a lot of books that are published, that are, written by Black people to talk about, well, this is how, you should look at Black folks, and this is how you should treat Black folks, and this is how we should look at how people of color live, and things of that nature. And I'm like, what do you feel like that? Is this like a lane that just opened up? We have some people, Michelle Alexander, her book was written, The New Jim Crow, years before it became popular now because of the situations that's happening now. Now it's popular, but she wrote that book years ago. And I remember listening to her saying that when she wrote that book, and it might even be in the preface of her book, is that when she wrote that book at that time, people told her, like, nobody's going to buy this. Nobody's going to read this. Because at that time, it wasn't really relevant and the information wasn't relevant like it is today. So do you see like that as being a new, almost, if I could say such a thing, a niche for people to get into, to say, let's talk about, urban life and how you should treat us in the workplace and things of that nature. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that manifests itself in these new diversity, equity, and inclusion directors, the directors that are popping up at all of the companies. We have somebody here who's going to talk about DIE, and that's enough. We're progressive because we have a DIE officer upstairs. So, I mean, I guess it's a start because they didn't have it before, but it's definitely not the answer. It's definitely not the solution. And unfortunately, I think because it's such a coined term and everybody's DIE focus, people think that because we're at this stage, we've arrived. When in fact, we're still very much in the midst of racial hell.
Yeah.
I would like to say that it's getting better. I think that it's getting better, but we still have a long way to go.
A long way.
But even with the DIE, it's still in those roles. It's typically it's Black women that I see, and you're still those DIE officers and directors are teaching white people how to deal with us or how to approach us. So, like you said, we're still held accountable for someone else's actions. So we have to tell you what you're doing is wrong and tell you how to fix it. But it's kind of a catch-22 because if you're a white man in America, of course you can't teach me how to treat a Black person because
it just doesn't make any logical sense.
So it's a tough position to be in because I'm going to be honest. If I see a company whose DIE officer is a white man, I'm going to have some questions.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
That's an excellent point.
Right show me. But at the same time, if you do put a Black person in that role, they're still taking on that burden of this is what we need from you kind of situation. So, I mean,
it's just a nasty can of worms.
It is nasty.
It's a nasty can of worms, man. You don't know how to open it.
Not at all. I mean, I walked outside. I was playing darts one night, and I walked outside, and a conversation was going on, and a Mexican, a Native American / Mexican person was saying to a white woman, "You don't even know what redlining is," and that's with the houses,
right.
Yeah.
Not saying you don't know, but for anybody listening, that you go to buy a house in a certain area and they up, because you're a person of color, they up the interest rate like crazy or whatever to try and keep you out the area. And the Caucasian woman said, "Yes, I do, because my boyfriend and I went through it." I remember standing there in that moment.
Might be Black.
I remember standing there in that moment like, people are never going to get it if you're always going to be, when somebody says Black Lives Matter, you're always going to say all lives matter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're never going to get it if you're one of those people. And you're I love everybody and I don't see color. How could you not? How could you not? So I can imagine, that's why I wanted to know, like, how hard was it for you breaking into the business as a woman of color? Because I could see already, you know what I mean? Or, that's when they start to put little in front of everything. She's trying to open her little publishing company. Like, you could never be on a scale as some of these other companies. So I commend you. I know Carl Gerard gave me the eye, my fault. I'm gonna shut up.
I'm gonna give you the eye. I'm actually looking at you talk.
Yeah.
Can't look directly at you, speak.
I thought he was saying, yo, shut up, yo. But this is interesting. Because don't try to act like I don't get dissed on this show.
If I do, I hit the bell. That's when you know that it's time.
No, this was interesting for me, and it was educational for me. So I know, even though I already went through the experience, anybody who listens to this that is thinking about publishing a book, this is an excellent conversation right here, and a great start to just learning how to just jump out there and taking a chance, because everything that it looks like you accomplished, you took a risk.
Yeah.
And you said, let me just try and do it. And so you gotta just commend somebody who is not afraid to just jump out there and be great at what they do.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely requires courage. So for the listeners, whether you want to write a book or whatever your goal is, courage has to be a part of the recipe, or you ain't gonna have no food.
That's the truth.
Right.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah,
that's the truth. All right.
No good food.
Yeah, right. Before we get ready to wrap up, CaTyra, because we can talk to you for a very long time, but can you just let everybody know, where they can reach you at and all?
Yes. So I just wanted to clarify. Love4Words is an editing boutique, so I focus on the editing piece. I do have a vast network. So if you need a publisher, if you need a formatter, illustrator, book cover designer, I can certainly get you plugged in. But just to clarify that piece. So if you are an author and you have questions about the self-publishing process, if you have questions about working with me as an editor or consultation, you can visit my website. It's love4words.com. And you can learn more about me. My bio is there. You can set up a free consultation if you're ready for the editing stage, or set up a call and we can chat. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's Polland LLC, Poland like the country with 2 L's. Same on Twitter, Polland LLC. I have a Facebook page. You can type in Love4Words or facebook.com/Polland LLC. So all my contact information is on my website as well. If you want to email me or call me, that's love4words.com. Also, I do have a podcast too, Editor Knows Best.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because we might be talking to the competition, folks. So
No, it's a big enough market for all of us.
I know. I just like to pick with it. Come on, CaTyra.
Right. So if you're an author or editor, publisher, and looking for a platform to share your story and share advice, feel free to sign up as a guest. That's also my website. Under the media page, you can find Editor Knows Best. And the website is, again, love4words.com.
That's wonderful. All right. We thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, we really do.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't want you to just jump just yet,
Okay.
because the the National Black Authors Month. Just to clarify, what month is that designated for?
It is designated for the month of May. And the official date will be, I think the official date is May 4th, but it is May. May, and the inaugural National Black Authors Month will be in May of 2023. So that'll be the first one, the kickoff one. So again, I encourage everybody to do something to celebrate. Read a book by a Black author, become a Black author, host a signing, host a launch, host a read along that features a Black author, or even an event, just to talk about, again, past Black authors or those doing it now, and encourage, Black people to continue to write and become authors.
All right. So May the 4th. Hey, listen, for everybody out there is listening, don't let Star Wars Day, which is on May the 4th, overshadow Black Authors Month. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because the media do that to you.
Right.
It's how they get you, CaTyra.
So, or you goofies put the lifesavers down.
Yeah, put them black books, Black author books, man. Put them Star Wars novels down, right? Maybe, I don't know. Was Billy D on there? Maybe you can read one of them stories or something like that. All right, the Only One Mic podcast is available on all major platforms that you stream your podcasts on. Also, check out our Only One Mic podcast YouTube channel to catch up on the past and current episodes. And please don't forget to rate the show and subscribe. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can reach us on Instagram and Twitter at The Only One Mic. The Only One Mike P1. That's at Instagram and Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn at The Only One Mike Podcast, and The Only One Mike 00 at gmail.com. And there you can leave your comments and all. And CaTyra, thank you once again. Definitely a pleasure. And we will stay in touch with you. All right. And we encourage you to speak your truth quietly and clearly and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant, because they too have their story to tell. So until the next time, please keep in mind that we never had to run from the Ku Klux Klan, so we shouldn't have to run from a black man. Peace.
Peace. Peace. Peace.